Hey everybody, it's me, Amelia Lady B, and welcome back to my channel, Millennial in Menopause. Today's video is about young women and their reproductive health. I have shared my story about having endometriosis and starting my menstrual at 9, and from the age of 10 I was suffering with really severe cramps. And so just recently, actually in December last month, an actress by the name of Marsai Martin, if you are unfamiliar with her, she is the young lady who played Diane in Blackish. She also produced her own movie Little, and most recently produced a movie on Paramount streaming app. So she is a mogul in her own right, and she shared her experience with having a cyst removed just before the holidays. So I'm going to share just a few clips from her Instagram live that she did talking about her experience having surgery for a cyst.
I'm having, a moment. It's been terrible. And my parents come in and they're like, do you need to go to the emergency room? And I'm like, I hate the emergency room. I hate the hospital. The hospital is just terrible for me. I'm like, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to go to a simple fact that I just don't like the hospital. People are, you there all the time, long hours, you getting sick, you're around people that's sick, you either getting stuff taken out of you or things getting put in you, and I don't like it. I don't want to do it, and I'm not going to. But eventually I was just like, that same day, I was just like, yeah, I'm going to have to do something about it because I've been going through it for too long. And it was just something I just kind of suffered in, not really in silence, but I just kind of kept my composure out for the outer world, I guess. So fast forward, went to the emergency room. Terrible, down for the count. They tell me that I get an ultrasound done. And they tell me I have a very large cyst, ovarian cyst, that is just huge. They give me a number, and I'm like, ooh, okay. Anything higher than 5 is just crazy. So they're like, you got to go see a gynecologist. And I was like, okay, is this the reason of my cycles? I'm like, is this the reason why it's, as bad as it is? And I talked to a gynecologist, and she's like, okay, so you're going to either need to be on birth control or get surgery. And I was like, oh. So the thing about birth control for me and my family is that genetically, it never really went well for my family. And even, just different issues. And, I know that's not that for everybody, because I know a couple people that also have are on birth control as well, and including some people that I'm close to, my friends or whatever. So I was considering it, but knowing the history of my family, sometimes you gotta look back and see what your mom went through, your mom's mom went through, your mom's mom went through, to see just how it is just genetically. And I decided that probably wasn't the best move for me. Because of just all of the symptoms and everything just that went side effects, that went along with it. And I even with me being so busy and moving around as much, I didn't think I was able to deal with something else on top of that.
So the reason why I decided to share some clips from her IG is because I really commend her for being a young woman. She's 18 years old now, and in her story, she was explaining how her severe cramps started when she was 14 years old. And so her cycle was always kind of debilitating to her. She was always in pain, but she kind of moved through it. And you could hear in the video where she said she kind of didn't suffer in silence, but she just kind of pushed through it. And so it took her a while before her parents just decided to take her to the ER. I'm not sure if I captured it in this video, but She did explain that she did go to her doctor, so more than likely her pediatrician, her primary care, and they informed her that, you know, you're a girl, so you're going to be experiencing cramps, so this is normal for you. This should be okay. But then they also offered to put her on birth control pills. And as you hear in the video, which I truly commend, and this is something that I talk about on my channel a lot in most of my content, she shared that she decided not to go on to the birth control pill because of side effects and due to family history of side effects for birth control pills. And that is very, very, very important. So I always talk about how it's very important to talk to family, to mothers, to grandmothers, regarding even aunts, regarding their health in general, definitely their reproductive health. You know, it's really important to know if anybody in your family has ever had a hysterectomy. Has anybody in your family ever dealt with fibroids, PCOS, any type of ovarian cysts, any type of ovarian issues, ovarian uterine issues, cancers, any of those things, because it is a possibility that somewhere down the line it could show up again, whether it be in you, a sibling, your child, or a niece. You just don't know, but it can show up again. So it's really important to not only know what health issues you have, but also any allergies or reactions to medication. Now, that's the first time that I even heard about, actually no, because I did read up on birth control pills, after the fact. I was on birth control pills for years. Like, I was on and off birth control pills for years. And I did, after the fact, understand that the side effects to those could be blood clots. It can increase issues with cancer if you have family history of cancer, and so many other things. I believe heart disease or heart attack, stroke, things like that. So I know her mother is heavily involved in her life, which is beautiful, which is a beautiful thing. And she was there with her daughter even when she was doing the live. I'm pretty sure it was there for the moral support, because as you can see, she seemed a little bit nervous, because I mean, what young lady would want to come on their live talking about their reproductive health and what issues they were having during their menstrual? And so I truly commend her for doing this video, because I'm telling you, it took me some time. I was 33 when I started. Or no, I wasn't 33 when I started this. I was like a little later in, like, how old was I? Oh my gosh, I don't even know. I was like 30, maybe 37 or something when I started my channel. And so it was hard for me. So I can't imagine for an 18-year-old. So I truly commend her on sharing her story. And I'm sure it will help so many other women, because you could see the comments going up and how many people were sharing their experience with horrible period pains, and other women who were sharing you'll be okay and different things like that, because they've experienced it as well. Understand, in the Black community, it is so, we have to know, I think for all women in general, I can't exclude in this situation. However, for Black women in particular, because we're so silent and quiet all the time when it comes to certain things, and we kind of brush things over because we're the strong women, and because, you know, we have to uphold ourselves a certain way. And I am guilty of this time and time again. I remember going to work and being at work, and I'd be in excruciating pain, and I'd have my heating pad with me plugged in up under my desk, or I'd have my pills, pop in my pills just to manage throughout the day, and nobody would be none less the wise. They would not know. It wasn't until I think just before one of my surgeries, it was like I was really having bad pain, and I knew that I needed to go back to the doctor. That's actually before I found my current doctor. And I knew I had to go back because my pain levels were just getting excruciating. I just couldn't take it anymore. Like, it was really bad. And I asked my supervisor if I could go to my car for about 30 minutes. I just need to relax. And she was like, okay. And so I went to my car. And I just remember being in my car and I just cried. I mean, there have been many times where I would just cry all the way home, even when I was in college, driving back home, because I didn't stay on campus. Driving to school or driving back home, I would cry. I would be pulling over to throw up and then keep going about my day. It was just what I did. This was my normal. I knew nothing different. And so you just keep it trucking. And just like her, she keep it trucking. I don't think I shared it in this clip because I kind of did short clips because I didn't want it to be too long. Her live was kind of long. But she shared where she was having really bad cramps during the last episode, the filming of Blackish. And so she was saying how, she just kind of moved through the process, taking something or just relaxing for a minute and just pushing through. And how many of us have done that? How many of us are still doing that right now? How many of you are still doing that right now? How many of us in general? I mean, I'm not going through period cramps, but pushing through menopause, pushing through all of the things that we're going through. Even when it comes to our mental health, you have people who are depressed, but pushing through. They may have a smile on their face, they're joking around, but on the inside, they are like crumbling into pieces. And that's what suffering in silence is. I know she didn't want to call it suffering in silence, but it's a sort of suffering in silence when you're not really speaking up or saying what's going on. But even in that sense, who do you talk to? Who's gonna believe you? Who is, so it's like we have to make it a normal situation or a normal event for us to communicate about our menstrual health. It needs to be normalized that we are very open with our daughters, nieces, and whomever in our lives about menstrual health. Because for a long time, I shared in a few videos, for a long time, my aunt did not believe me when I was crunched over in pain. Now my mom, and the thing about it is, my mom was very attentive. And I remember when I first started having really bad cramps, and she bought me like the Midols and stuff like that. None of that stuff worked. Pampering and all that stuff did not work for me. And she would rub me down with like warm alcohol and just try to keep me as calm as possible, and hot teas. She would try to rub me down, and sometimes I couldn't be touched, things like that. She would pick me up from school. Some days she would just be like, no, you're staying home, things like that. But if I called her and it was regarding my period, she would definitely come and pick me up, no questions asked. And again, going to a pediatrician, I don't think, and I can't even, to be honest with you, I don't remember if I discussed it with the pediatrician or if my mom ever discussed it with the pediatrician about my menstrual cramps, and if maybe she was told the same thing. I cannot recall. Yeah, that's one thing I can't recall. I don't know if that conversation was ever had, but it's like, what do you do? what do you do? So, but it's very important that you're just attentive, and then that you have to be the advocate for that young girl who is experiencing those pains. So her parents take her to the doctor, and at this point she's obviously worse than what she usually was. So her parents were like, you want to go to the ER? And even though she didn't want to go, it's like, you need to go to the ER. So take her to the ER and then proceed to a gynecologist. So having that support, I get it. You may know your kids, right? You know your kids and you know how they act, and you have some that are just over the top in their dramatics, and you know when they're faking, but you have to know when they're real. You know when they're really serious about what's going on. No girl should be crying. No girl should be throwing up. You should not be curled in fetal position. You shouldn't feel comfortable on the floor. You shouldn't, if I touch you, if you touch her, it shouldn't be pain. She shouldn't be screaming in pain. She shouldn't, it just shouldn't be that extent. It shouldn't be that way every month on end. It shouldn't be a repeat cycle. If you've had endometriosis, if you had any other, if you've had or someone in your family has, it's very important. Family history is important. Be adamant. Talk to those doctors about what's going on in your family and who had what, because it can help with the process of treatment. For her, she had an ultrasound. For Marsai, she had an ultrasound, and they determined that she had a cyst, so they had to remove it. So she had a laparoscopic surgery. So after that, she didn't necessarily say she was diagnosed with anything. She just said that she had a cyst. So possibly she just may have a family history of ovarian cyst, or she had a cyst. It's not known. It's none of my business until she brings it to the light if she's diagnosed with anything. But for the most part, there are girls out there who are dealing with cysts, and possibly multiple cysts, really big cysts that even protrudes to the belly, that makes it seem like they're pregnant, but they're not. And it could just be a very large ovarian cyst or even a fibroid. Please share this information with a spouse, with your spouse. Even you, I feel like, honestly, women's reproductive health should be shared with men as well, because you have brothers who are protective of their sisters. You have husbands or men or dads who are protective of their wives, but also protective of their little girls. And so you definitely want to it's important for everyone to know as much as possible. So share this with a niece, share this video with, family, with friends, because the more conversation around our health, the better we can make it for, or possibly try to make it for, our next generation. I know what I went through with my health, and I don't want to see this happen again in my family. So I am very vocal about going to the doctor. I'm very vocal, and I pay attention when I see someone, if they're cramping, if they're holding their stomach, or if they're not feeling okay, and I'm asking the questions. I have to be very aware of that, and I try not to be too pushy, especially like when it comes to my friends. I know a lot of times nobody may like to tell me anything, but I'm very pushy. I'm like, when was the last time you went to the gynecologist? When was the last time you had this checked or whatever? And I'm asking those questions. I'm also telling them, this is what you need to say to your doctor. These are the tests you need to have. This is what you need to ask for. All that stuff. It's very important that you do that. What I do want to share as well is when you are taking your daughters to the gynecologist for the first time, I would say this, even if they are sexually active, but definitely if they're not sexually active, if they're young, if they've it's very important to ask the doctor, and a lot of women don't know this, if they have a small speculum, because it'll make it less painful. So it's very important to ask for a small speculum, and even for yourself, even if it's uncomfortable, whether you're sexually active or not, because it's just a painful tool. I mean, honestly, when you look at it, you're like, that's supposed to ew, really? So I would definitely recommend that you ask for a small speculum. Same thing. Okay, so this would be the same thing when it comes to ultrasound. So they have the abdominal ultrasound, which is above, but they have the abdominal, but then they also have a transvaginal ultrasound. Transvaginal ultrasound is the ultrasound. It's like a long ultrasound stick, like, and it is inserted into the vagina. So they have different technology. All hospitals are different, all doctors' offices are different, so you may want to ask depending on the way that it looks, so you can pay attention to what it looks like, and you can decide. You can tell them, listen, no, do you have something smaller than that wand? And ask for it, because they have some that are kind of wider, and then those that are more narrow and thinner. So you definitely want to ask those questions, or ask questions. Advocate for yourself, advocate for your daughter, or advocate for your niece. Listen, if it's your niece, ask your sister or whomever's daughter that is, can you go with them? Your goddaughter, whomever, can you go with them to the doctor if you feel more comfortable with advocating for them? But definitely do so. To make this all simpler, because I am who I am, I do have an ebook, and it's called Advocating for Yourself in the Doctor's Office, and it is on my website, and it can be shared with, it can be for yourself, but definitely shared with young women, because it will help you with the process of talking through what's going on in the body, as far as what to ask your doctors, what to look for, what reproductive health issues there are out there. You may not want to too much share that information with them, but it's good for them to know. Please, let's understand, just like we know about breast cancer and things like that, we have to be aware of these things and pains in our body. We have to be aware. You're teaching them how to self-check. You need to self-check, and so does she needs to self-check as well. The way the world is going and the foods that we're eating, cancer is showing up. Breast cancer is showing up in a lot of young women, and it's very scary, very sad, but it's happening to a lot of young women. And I don't mean just young women in their 20s, but even in their teens. So please have open conversations. Please assure them and just make them aware that this is not necessarily what's happening to you, because I promise you, for a long time I thought I had ovarian cancer. I thought I had cancer. I really did, because the symptoms that I had was similar to that. But thank God I did not, but it is very possible for a plethora of reproductive health issues. It could be just a cyst, it could be a fibroid, it could be PCOS, could be endometriosis, could be adenomyosis, it could be so much. There's so much out there, guys. And I think the more aware that they are, the more aware that you are, the more attentive that you'll be to your own body, the more attentive that you'll be to their bodies. Also, you'll be more apt to go continue to get your screenings done, your proper screenings done. You continue to ask more questions. Also, in that ebook, it is a writable ebook, so you're able to track any of your pains. You're able to take notes in that ebook as well. You can have it on your phone, you can have it on your tablet, print it out, whatever it is that you want to do, so that you're able to even take it with you to your doctor's office. So if you have any questions, you'll be able to have that to write some stuff down. So I hope this video really helped. I again want to commend Marsai Martin on her story and on her journey. I know it was a very nerve-wracking journey and experience, because nobody wants to be cut open. Nobody wants, even if it was a laparoscopic surgery, nobody wants to go through that process. But I pray her health. I pray that, she doesn't have to experience this again, that this is a one-time thing for her. But I definitely pray for her journey and her continued health. I pray for you all as well. Please keep in mind your bodies, your symptoms. Please be aware. Please have conversations with your family. Please have conversations with the women in your family. Make it a night of just coming together and having the young women around, and that way you guys can share just some of your experiences as being a woman. It doesn't always have to be about health, but just being a woman in general, but just being aware, because as we grow up, it's so important. Like, I wish I had that, because it would make a whole lot more sense, right? And it would make it a lot easier as I'm sitting in the doctor's office trying to figure out what's going on with me, because like I'm like, no, I don't have that, no, I don't have that, and then years down the road you found out, oh, so y'all did have this and y'all didn't tell me nothing. Anyhow, that's that. If you do not, to anyone who's viewing who does not have biological parents and biological family members that you can get in contact with, please do not feel left out in this conversation, because you are still a part of the conversation, because you are going to start a whole new generation for yourself. And so that book can still help you in your journey and your process. This can help you understand what you can produce in your family and passing the baton over, and helping them to advocate for themselves as well. You can help friends in your circle, because family is what you make it. So if you have friends in your life who you need to help, then by all means do so. So thank you so much for watching. You can follow me on Instagram at Millennial and Menopause. Don't forget to check out my website at millennialandmenopause.com, and don't forget to download, get my ebook, Advocating for Your Reproductive Health. And is that it? And that's it. So until next time, ladies, be blessed, bold, and beautiful. Bye.